So today we're going to be looking at the cost behavior. Cost behavior, we have three different costs associated in cost. We have our variable costs, we have fixed costs, and then we have mixed costs. Let's go ahead. I'm going to take a look at the variable costs. And the variable costs, as we can see, are those costs which for every single unit are added, and it's the like our direct materials. If, for instance, I'm going to use the illustration of a computer, and we're adding a disk drive to it. Let's say our cost is $10 per computer or per disk drive. So for every one of the computers we manufacture, we are going to be adding $10. So if we do one, it'll be $10. If we do two, it'll be $10 each. For the second one, $10, third one, $10, fourth one, $10. So it continues at $10 per unit. But if we do, say in this case, 5,000 units, if we do 5,000 units, then the cost at $10 each is going to be equal to $50,000 for the total of all those units, but it's still $10 per unit. If we do 30,000 units times $10, that's going to be equal to $300,000. So we can see that the cost, while it continues to be a $10 per unit, it's going to increase continuously. So if I do a graph, as our quantity increases, or I'm sorry, quantity, I'm going to put it over here, our dollars are going to increase. So it's going to look something like this. If we go down and look down below this, I have to turn that off, I guess. So if we look at it and we can graph it and see, then we can see first the graph on a per unit basis. So on a per unit basis, this graph here on the unit graph is $10 continuously all the way across, no matter how many units we do. It's going to be $10 within the relevant range. But as the quantity increases in this graph, as the quantity increases, our total cost will increase at the rate of $10 per unit. So graphically speaking, we can see that. Next, I'm going to cover the fixed costs. The fixed costs are a little bit different in that the fixed costs remain the same regardless of the level of production. Here we can see that we have the salary of the owner, or I'm sorry, the supervisor, is $75,000. It's $75,000 regardless of the number of units. So if I have one unit, it's going to be $75,000. 2 units, it's still $75,000. 100,000 units, still $75,000. What it does, though, is it changes the cost per unit, because we'll take the total number of units and divide that into that fixed cost. So in this illustration, you can see we have 50,000 bottles at $75,000. Dividing that by 50,000, we have a cost of $1.50 per bottle. If, on the other hand, we're doing 100,000 bottles, dividing $75,000 by 100, we're going to spread that over the 100,000 bottles, it'll be 75 cents per bottle, and so on. As we continue to increase our volume, the cost per bottle will continue to decrease. Let's look at the graph here for a moment. As you can see, we have a graph where the total fixed cost remains the same regardless of the number of units, the total fixed cost. So it's just a flat line. On the other hand, if we graph it on a per unit basis, if we start out, it's going to be a greater amount with the fewer units, because we take the total cost, $75,000, and if we divide that by 50,000 units, it's going to be $1.50. And we'll continue to graph that down, and we can see here the 100,000 units at 75 is 75 cents per unit. And so we can plot that on our graph. If we go to the next one, we take 150 divided by 75,000, or divided into 75,000, it's 50 cents per unit. So it continues to decrease. Let me relate this to something you might be able to visualize. Let's pretend for a moment they teach me, or they pay me, the school does, $100 to teach a class. If I have one student in here, then the cost per student would be $1. If I have $100. If I have two students in here, then the cost per student is $50. Well, if I have a classroom with 50 students in it, then my cost is how much? $2 per student. $100 divided by 50. So what would the school be motivated to do? They want to increase the class size to reduce the cost per student. They collect more revenue, but the cost per student goes down as far as that fixed cost goes. So you can see where the schools would like to have larger classrooms rather than smaller classrooms. There's a significant financial savings to them if they do so. I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to come back and I'll do another video regarding mixed cost.